Buonasera signore e signore, benvenuti alla Casa Italiana zerilli-marimò della New York University. It's my great pleasure to welcome in particular the members of Save Venice here in New York. As you know, Save Venice is doing fantastic work to restore and keep up the incredible artistic architectural patrimony of Venice. We're very grateful to them for the work they do. And that's why we have partnered up with them from several years, many years I would say, to present in conjunction with them lectures and other programs that would emphasize, it is in the case of this evening, not only the artistic greatness of Venice, but also things that are happening right now. And that's where Melissa McGill and her work comes into the discourse. I'm particularly delighted to be here and to have you here this evening because of Melissa's work and her connection to Giorgio Spano and Magazzino Italian Art. Giorgio Spano also, who is here with us in the audience, please welcome him with an applause. Thank you. He's not only the founder of Magazzino Italian Art, and for those of you who still haven't seen it, I strongly encourage you to take a look at their website and book a tour of Magazzino. It's a fantastic space designed by architect Miguel Quismondo, who is also here tonight. And Miguel has already received several awards for his architectural work in designing that space that used to be an industrial space and turning it into a state-of-the-art museum that really emphasizes and valorizes Italian art as no other space does. So this connection, Melissa, Giorgio, Magazzino, and Save Venice, makes me particularly happy. And since we really want to listen to Melissa, her projects, her art, there is nothing else for me to do than presenting the executive director of Save Venice here in New York, Amy Gross. Thank you.
Buonasera tutti. As Stefano said, I'm Amy Gross, the executive director of Save Venice, and we're delighted to be here presenting our first talk in our 1920 Education and Enrichment series. We have 4 more talks in New York this year, as well as talks in Boston and elsewhere, so check out our website for more information about all of our activities and our upcoming restoration projects. This is an exciting moment for Save Venice as well because we have just completed the restoration of Vittorio Carpaccio's St. Ursula cycle. And we are well underway with the restoration of Titian's Assumption of the Virgin in the Frari. We're also looking towards our 50th anniversary in 2021, and we have 2 very exciting new major restorations. You can learn about those projects on March 31 at a talk at the Colony Club with Melissa Kahn, the director of our Venice office. And you can also learn about those on the website. So Save Venice preserves the artistic and cultural identity of Venice, and Red Regatta in many ways shares these same goals. When I first learned about Melissa McGill's project, I was struck by its ambitious scale and scope and the beautiful notion of these vivid red sails in the Venetian lagoon against the backdrop of Venice. If you weren't among those fortunate enough to see the regattas, and I was not, this is the next best thing. This is Melissa's first talk in anywhere, and we're thrilled that we're a part of this. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Melissa. Melissa McGill is an interdisciplinary artist who creates ambitious, large-scale, site-specific art projects and works in a variety of media, including photography, painting, drawing, sculpture, sound, light, and immersive installation. Her works connect viewers to overlooked histories and traditions, explores the conversation between the visible and the invisible, and heightens awareness of our surroundings. Based in New York, McGill lived in Venice from 1991 to 93 and has returned regularly for inspiration, research, and artistic collaborations for over 2 decades. Red Regatta is the artist's second major project that raises awareness of Venetian life and culture. Her previous sculptural sound work, The Campi, May 2017, invoked daily life in the Venetian Campo and was presented at Carlo Scappa's Casa Studios Scaturn, Università di Venezia, and Giorgio Mazzini Fine Art in Venice, Italy. The Campi was curated by Chiara Spangaro and sponsored by Magazzino Italian Art. Constellation, 2015 to 2017, installed on an island in the Hudson River, New York, lit each night, creating a new constellation transforming Bannerman Castle ruin. McGill has been exhibiting her artwork nationally and internationally since 1991, including recent solo exhibitions at the Permanent Mission to the United Nations, Tota, New York, White Cube, London, Powerhouse, Memphis, Palazzo Capello, Venice, and CRG Gallery, New York. Her upcoming solo exhibition of Red Regatta related works will open in Turin, Italy on October 31 with Mazzoleni at Artissima. And it's my pleasure to have Melissa come on stage. Thank you.
And we're there. Buonasera and good evening. Thank you all for coming tonight. It is my first artist talk on Red Regatta. It's a very special evening because the project just was completed about a month ago. We sailed the last regatta, and so it's specifically wonderful to be in a room full of Venice-loving people to present this tonight. So I'd like to start with a reminder about our common essence, water. From Rachel Carson's The Sea Around Us. Each of us carries in our veins a salty stream in which elements, sodium, potassium, and calcium, are combined in almost the same proportions as seawater. This is our inheritance from the day untold millions of years ago when a remote ancestor, having progressed from one-celled to many-celled stage, first developed a circulatory system in which the fluid was merely the water of the sea. And she goes on, as life itself began in the sea, so each of us begins our individual life in a miniature ocean within mother's womb, and in the stages of embryonic development repeats the steps by which the race evolved, from gill-breathing inhabitants of water world to creatures able to live on land. So, the making of Red Regatta, this is what my desk looked like at one point. Everything is red. The making of Red Regatta is a tale of love, passion, and community coming together to raise awareness about shared beliefs and concerns. It is a tale of true collaboration with over 300 Venetian partners. This is an important part of Red Regatta, considering that now the ratio in Venice is something like 1 Venetian to every 358 tourists. It's true. So this is a tale filled with challenges, both technical and logistical, full of struggles to convince government agencies to give permissions, and to organize such a series of events given its lack of precedent. But one of my favorite Arab proverbs says, throw your heart out in front of you and run ahead to catch it. And so this odyssey begins. My relationship with Venice, as was just said, began 30 years ago. I graduated from Rhode Island School of Design and Sculpture, and right after graduation I went to Venice, the first city in Europe that I ever saw. And that's quite a thing to step out of that train station and see that. So, because I went alone, I made many Venetian friends and learned to speak Italian with a Venetian slant, even a little Venetian dialect, and I've always been very drawn to water, so I was completely captivated by this city. I've returned frequently over the 30 years, getting married in Malamocco, which is at the end of the Lido. It's one of the oldest villages in Venice, and I've returned often with my family and for work. But over these 30 years, I've noticed some dramatic changes happening in the city. I've listened to my Venetian friends express profound concern about these changes, and this moved and inspired me to create a vibrant, living artwork aimed to unite Venetians and visitors to celebrate cultural and maritime history in the city and call attention to the forces of climate change and the rising sea levels and mass tourism that threaten its future. But first, I'd like to quickly explain how Red Regatta started in describing its predecessor, another Venetian project that was just described briefly, the Campi. So, since this was already touched on and you understood something of it maybe, it's another project that comes out of my observations about the changing city. I noticed that the sounds of the city were changing and that the life in the campos, which are the public squares, the Venetian public squares, really the heart of the neighborhoods, that was changing. So because these rare and extraordinary public spaces are in real danger of disappearing due to overwhelming mass tourism and dwindling local population. For example, many fruit stands and vegetable stands have closed, and many artisanal shops and shop that serves the city and their residents are being replaced by hundreds of shops that sell Venetian masks and glass made in China, plastic water bottles, etc. So the Campi is a sculptural sound project that consists of 5 distinct sculptural sound boxes. Each box evokes the architectural footprint of the campo. So here you see aerial view of the campo. It's pretty contrasty, so it's hard to see the form. But this is the more graphic version, and then my sheet, and then that's the campo box. So it's approximately this big. Each one ranges a little bit in size, but they're approximately that big. So the campos that I focused on are ones that are still vibrant and full of authentic Venetian life. Campo Santa Maria Formosa, Campo San Giacomo dell'Orio, Campo del Ghetto Nuovo, Campo San Polo, and Campo Santa Maria Nova, which is shown here. Taking the form of these black lacquered wooden boxes, like music boxes, each campo is a translation of the footprint in 3 dimensions and captures the unique sounds. So I recorded the sounds of those campos. And so when the box is closed, it murmurs and you hear some of the sounds. But when you lift the lid, a cloud of sound emerges that really transports you to the campo. You hear footsteps, children playing, conversation between neighbors, but very soft. It's not so much about the words, it's more about the sensation. Footsteps on stone, dogs barking, waves lapping, the swifts that you hear each evening flying around. So all of that is captured. I recorded from dawn till dusk and then edited it into a loop, so it goes continuously. One of them is on view at Magazzino Italian Art, so you can see it there and experience it yourself. And this is really activating the interplay between sound and memory, public and private space, visceral and physical experience. And it's really very transportive when you hear the sounds. This is a photograph of the installation at Casa Studio Scaturin. Carlo Scarpa designed this space for his lawyer and friend Scaturin around 1960, and Carlo Scarpa, this renowned Venetian architect, born in 1906, was celebrated and honored for his attention to history while transcending it through his very modern interventions. So it's always this incredible balance between history and the moment, the more contemporary moment. Virtually all of his work was done in and around Venice, and he's one of my biggest influences. You'll hear me talk about him a few times in this talk. Now this place is privately owned and was only open for this exhibition. So that was a really incredible experience for people to be able, part of the project was really about the opening of this space for people to be able to visit. You see the campo box there. There were a series of prints that are also in the footprint but use photographs of the campo. This desk was designed by Carlo Scarpa for Scaturin. So the whole space, different rooms of the office had different campo boxes in them. And you could listen to each one, and that was a dream come true to have that opportunity to show it there. There were also campo boxes exhibited at Catron, a palazzo on the Grand Canal that's used by UAV, the Università UAV di Venezia, so that's the art and architecture school, and Giorgio Mastino Fine Art. The idea being that you could move between these locations, you could experience the project, but then go actually into the campos as you're walking from one to the other, hear with new awareness those sounds, and then go visit the next. At the end of the exhibition, I wanted to take one of my sculptural sound boxes on tour through the narrow canals with a small group of friends to explore the layering of the sounds. And by chance, that day was life-changing because I met 2 men who were my key collaborators in Red Regatta. Silvio Testa on the left is the author of a wonderful book about these traditional wooden Vela Terzo sailboats, and Giorgio Righetti behind me in this beautiful boat here with the campo box on the prow is the president of the Associazione Vela Terzo Venezia, an organization that is dedicated to preserving this storied maritime tradition. So we did listen to the sounds, but I was so captivated by the boats, and I grew up sailing with my father on Long Island. And as we traveled through these quiet canals and hidden waterways in Venice, I immediately fell in love with these boats and all they stood for in Venice. I asked a lot of questions. We ended up stopping at Mare di Carta, which is a wonderful maritime bookstore in Venice. It's the first time I've gone to a bookstore by boat. And we bought Silvio's book, and he inscribed it to me, and I have barely put that book down. It's been on my desk. It was in that first picture for 2 years, and I absorbed it all on the plane on the way home, which is where Red Regatta really was. That was where it's rooted. So this is an image from the book. It's a reproduction of Maurice Prendergast, 1898, a painting called Venice, Vela al Terzo. Venetians have been sailing Vela al Terzo boats in the city's waterways and lagoon for over 1,000 years. Designed with a flat bottom and a removable mast to navigate the distinct terrain, so you can take the mast out to go under the bridges. Vela al Terzo boats traditionally hoist sails painted with identifying graphics and earthy colors representing each sailor's family. The bottom is very flat with a very shallow draw, which is necessary for navigating the shallow waters of especially Laguna Nord and some areas, the northern lagoon. This is, I looked at a lot of Sargent paintings. I love the Sargent watercolors. I'm sure many others here do too. This is drying sails. And you will see, when you look at the sails that they normally use, you will see sails that look just like this even today, like, with some of the similar markings. This is the drying sails. This is also Sargent. This is called Castello. The primary means of movement in Venice has always been by water. Most people know gondolas and vaporettos, but the Vela al Terzo has its own distinct and important place in Venetian history. I'm going to teach you a Venetian word in Venetian dialect now, Gibbigiana. So Gibbigiana, inspired by this image, Gibbigiana is when the light, who's been to Venice? Okay. All right. You know when the light reflects off of the water and dances under the bridge or on a building, it just reflects and bounces and dances there. That's Gibbigiana. And we actually have a boat named Gibbigiana in the Red Regatta. One of the boats is named Gibbigiana. So that's how I learned that word. Okay. So now there is a print of this that you might have seen when you're coming in. This is a hand-painted rendering, which I will talk about in a moment, but please do, I don't know where it is right now, if it's out here or upstairs, but please take note that I brought one so you can actually see one of the edition. On my flight home to New York from Venice, after meeting Giorgio and Silvio, I immediately started envisioning this project, like obsessed. And I started developing the project with Chiara Spangaro, the same curator that I worked with on the Campi. And I think that I mentioned this, but the Campi was the first project that I worked with Magazzino Italian Art to present in Venice, and Red Regatta is the second, which I'm very honored by. So we returned to Venice and started sailing in traditional regattas with Giorgio Righetti and the members of the Associazione in April of 2018. And then I started hand-painting renderings of what I was envisioning and kept developing the ideas. So imagine a red regatta, each boat rigged with sails hand-painted in distinct shades of red. This is a reference to what I said before when I mentioned that the sailors traditionally paint their sails with patterns and designs to distinguish them. So, it was the kind of thing where you can, a family member or someone could look out from the island of Venice or one of the islands and see their loved one out in a boat somewhere and say, oh, that's them because of the sails. So I wanted to give each sailor their own red. Why red? As the boats glide through the lagoon in unison, set against the sky, the sea, and the cityscape, and of course this beautiful green-blue of the lagoon. The sails reference forces of life and passion, alarm and urgency, and Venice itself. So they have emotional references and then they have physical references. From its bricks and terracotta rooftops to its flag and history of trade in red pigment to paintings of Titian, Tintoretto, other Venetian masters, red is a color of energy, vibrancy. It's alive, and Red Regatta is alive. It activates, it captures attention and imagination. So this hand-painted photograph is now in the Olnexbanu collection, and which I am also very proud of. This is when I was painting it in my studio very carefully, mixing each red with pigment, and then also painting the reflections, and you'll see more of that later. The reflections are a very important part of the project for me. At the same time, I was learning about the boats, the traditions, meeting the sailors, asking a lot of questions, Italian getting better all the time because I had to speak it all the time. I was reflecting on my personal experience with Venice and these dramatic changes that I've been referring to. The serious impacts of the oversized cruise ships, the ever-increasing motorboat traffic, shrinking local population, and UNESCO's expression of extreme concern about Venice's current conditions which threaten its authenticity, integrity, and way of life. But again, I wanted to say, I have seen this personally in my lifetime, so this is where this was really coming from too. Red Regatta navigates the delicate and liminal relationship between Venice's built and natural environments, between land and sea, and between humanity and nature. So the colors were all mixed in my studio with pigment, and then we matched them later in bigger quantities. This is a handmade case of hand-painted renderings. The red cloth cover and box of the box is painted in the same way the sails were painted. So there's really 3 bodies of work related to Red Regatta. So the first one is the renderings, is these groups of renderings. And all these little brush strokes, this is really me in New York, in Beacon, where my studio is upstate. It's really learning. When you paint and really spend time with, painting each wave and each reflection, you really fall into that water. And so it helped me, doing this work helped me connect when I was in New York to what was happening in Venice at the same time, to meditate on the details. It's really like this, you'll see. The lagoon's color changes constantly from green to blue to black at night. The color of the waters at the beginning of a regatta is different from the colors at the end. So it all depends on, of course, the light and the conditions and the weather. Okay, standing there in front of the sailors. Our first presentation to the members of the Associazione Vela Terzo Venezia happened in September 2017. It was my first time making a presentation completely in Italian. I'm relieved that I get to do this tonight, my first full talk in English. And I described the project, sharing artist renderings, proposals, but most of the time was Q&A. I really only talked for like 10 minutes, presented the project, and then there were like an hour of questions. And I answered all of the questions that the sailors had about what this was going to be. Because again, they sail regattas, but of course something like this had never been done with the Associazione Vela Terzo or in Venice. We aimed on signing 50 boats. We had a very strong and immediate response. And we were going to stop at 50 boats, but 2 people begged and we let them in. Collaborators sailed their own boats during the duration of the project, some bringing vessels passed down over generations. So one thing I want to say, looking at this, and you see Chiara Spangaro next to me there, and Marcella Ferrari, the project manager. When we started this project, when you start with an idea and you say, I want to do this, and you show images like this, there's some people who believe you, but there's a lot of people who don't believe you. I mean, there are really a lot of people who, this is the look of relief after the presentation that it went really well, and we were, people were happy with Chiara Spangaro and Marcella Ferrari. But, that thing of starting a project with a big dream and, the people who connect with it immediately, that's a very important thing. I'll talk more about that. But that is, really can keep you going. I mean, I was so inspired by that, and that really kept the wind in my sails, personally. So, Alessandro Pagnacco, an esteemed architect in Venice and a member of the Associazione Vela Terzo, shared profiles with me that he had drawn actually for Silvio's book and any new members that we needed to add for the participants. And I assigned each color very carefully, considering the colors of the boat's hull, the boat's name, and with great respect for the tradition of the boat and its owner. For example, Rosso Veneziano had to be Venetian red, had to be that color specifically. This is Attilia, which is Giorgio Righetti's boat. And he's the president of the association, so it had to be a good, strong color, but also he has this orangey red stripe on his boat. So I wanted to, make a color that had a reference to that. So with that in mind, I'd like to just take a moment to almost conjure all of my collaborators, my 52 boats, by reading you quickly their names, because the names are really incredible. Gibigiana, I explained that one. Nobile Voltafora, Armando, Alcione, Tinta, Araba Fenice, Razmataz, Boccolo, Agioppa, Bacma, Azeo, Paloma, Signora Marisa, that's named for his mother, Purazzina, Leon, Maestral, Borin, La Piovra, Garangeo, Calypso, Toga, Tabasco, Canea, Mino Curo Manzanete, that was hard to learn, that one. Rossellana, Jonathan, Volpina, Pagnocchea, Isabella, Ermenegilda, Macciarea, Nico Giacco, Mitieleo, that was always a hard one for me too. Musa, Pawana, Pesamela, Piero Menetto, Attilia, that's Attilia, Adamas, Shuluk, Nonodoro, Corsaro, Levante, Rosso Veneziano, Moeca, Eugenio, Morbin, Artemisia, Alba, San Marco, Lutz, Vento di Venezia. Now they're here with us. I returned to New York and I continued to develop the colors by painting sailcloth swatches, getting a feel for the materials. So this is my notebook. And, the sailcloth takes the paint in specific ways, so I wanted to experiment with that. Then I made a series of artworks. Now we're moving into the second group of artworks. The first were the renderings. Now there are the color studies. This is an artwork I created with those swatches titled 52 Reds for Red Regatta, and it has a very important Venetian reference, which some of you might know. This is the terrazzo floor of Carlo Scarpa's Negozio Olivetti, the Olivetti showroom in Piazza San Marco, a masterpiece designed in 1957. I have been admiring this floor for 30 years. The showroom has recently been reopened by FAI, Fondo Ambiente Italiano. I'm wearing the same shoes. I just realized. I did a lot of experiments with how the reds would appear when lit from behind or in shadow when illuminated by the sun, and how the colors would change. This is the first sail-painted prototype. I painted it in a friend's studio in Newburgh, New York. I carefully documented everything about this process, how long it took me to paint each side, how much water I put into the paint, how long it took to dry, how long until I could turn it over. And I experimented with the brushstrokes with different sized brushes, and all of this data was collected very carefully because it all had to be used to plan for a big sail painting workshop in Venice. Meanwhile, in Venice, we researched a number of sailmakers. Now you know the names. So Pawana and Borin, those are two of the boats. Eventually, we chose Baraonda in Caorle, which is in the Veneto, a sailmaker who makes a lot of sails for the members of the Associazione Vela Terzo. Paolo Favara was able to do this big order and work with our timeline and budget, and was able to handle what we were about to give him, because we made all new sails for every boat, and every boat has 2 sails. So Paolo was enthusiastic and expressed a lot of passion about being part of the collaboration, and it was very centrally important to me to work with local partners, as many people connected with the Associazione Vela Terzo as possible for all of the project needs. So for example, Paolo also often sails in the regattas with his friends in the Vela Terzo Association, but also you're going to see some really wonderful videos that were done with drone and from the boat. Those are also made by one of my sailors, one of my collaborators, Giovanni Pellegrini. He participated with his boat, getting friends to sail it because he had to do the drone and other stuff, but it was still part of the project. So I sought to collaborate with as many of their connections as possible. We made 104 sails for 52 boats. Each had to be custom made because the boats are not all the same kind. You'll see there's different sizes, there's different types, and the sails were all given to each boat. So the sails are staying with the sailors. So now, with that's all happening, I'll give you some perspective about the difficulties of how this goes. So we originally applied to be a collateral project with the Venice Biennale, and we were not accepted. And we tried to get the Comune di Venezia to collaborate at the beginning, but early on, I think they were really thinking, well, is she going to be able to do this? Is this really going to be pulled off? So we had to wait a long time to win them over. It was a very long and difficult process. And despite all of that, I continued to work with my team and move forward. It seemed that the wind was against us a lot of the time. My friends in the front here will remember it was a bit of a roller coaster for a while. And I may have been crazy, but I never gave up. Never 1 second did I give up. And Giorgio, you said the same thing. You never gave up. I had to keep a large team of people engaged and believing in what we were going to be presenting here and that it would become a reality. And for every person who had doubts or didn't believe we could do it, there were many more who did. Or they were quiet, I don't know. But in March of 2019, we took a big step forward and we organized a sail painting workshop with art students from Università di Venezia, thanks to Angela Vittese. And each student received school credit for participating. Students and collaborating sailors, Marcella Chiara and I, all joined forces to paint the sails at Spazio Tetis in Venice's Arsenale. And that was donated for the project.
Non è gigante. Questo è il rosso veneziano, hai capito? Proprio...
Tutta quella per successivo.
Manca 400.
Sì, benissimo.
No, restate con i calendari. Questi sono
la vela e si lavano le mani e tutto il colore scende giù per il colore.
Che bello, no? Sono 50 rosse del progetto.
Della Red Regatta?
Sì. 50 rents for Red Regatta.
E me la porto su. Adoro. Se non lo fa. Voilà!
So this time was very meaningful because it was the first time we really saw it happen. You know, we really saw them in space. It was a very meaningful site to paint the sails in as well, because in this part of the Arsenale, the maritime historical arsenal, this is normally not open to the public. So when the sailors and students would come, who had never been there before, they were very inspired by this incredible, beautiful space. And it was a perfect fit for the project. So we painted 104 sails in 8 days. It was an incredible community formed between the young students and the sailors of all ages that you saw. The students learned about the sails, the tradition about the boats, just, you know, in the process of being there painting together. And we all ate lunch together every day. And it was just an incredible, unforgettable time. It's one of my favorite parts of the whole project. It was so moving. And then the sailors invited all the students to come sail as crew in the first regatta, the first Red Regatta. And then they got all interested, and some of them are taking sailing lessons now. And, you know, so it's really spurred and brought to life a whole new community and the combination of communities. Many of the students and sailors said, oh, we'll come for a day or a couple days, and they signed up for what hours they could do, and they all came every day. It was amazing. All the paint was donated by Golden Artist Colors, which was a huge gift to the project. So I'm making color notations here with the names of the boats and the corresponding colors. And I mean, you can see we really had a lot of fun. After painting with brushes the first day, you might have noticed that we started painting with brooms after. At 4 o'clock in the morning at a jet-lagged moment, I was thinking about, like, how are we going to cover more space faster, because we had this space for a certain amount of time. And I thought of a way to get larger brush strokes. What is a larger brush? Okay, it's going to be brooms. So we bought every broom head on Via Garibaldi at the hardware store. The guy loved us. And he was like, what are you doing with all these? And we brought them to the Arsenale, and they made, you saw me making that big brush stroke. They made these incredible brush strokes. Wow. That is why I wanted the hand in it. That kind of brush stroke, illuminated by the light, so each cell becomes a painting. So I'm not going to show you Regatta quite yet, but I couldn't resist showing you that. First, I want to tell you about these people. So I asked each collaborating sailor to write a written testimony about the origin of their boat and the relationship to the Vela Terzo sailing tradition. And to accompany the written testimonies, which we're going to do a book, I shot a photographic portrait of every one of them with the red sails. So this is my Venetian Red Regatta family, just a few of them. During the workshop, as I said, we painted together, we ate lunch together, and strong bonds of friendship are formed. And it was really easy to take pictures of them because they were all smiling all the time. It was an unforgettable experience. And these are the students. I took portraits of all the students that worked with us, and these students continued to show up at every time we needed them. Like every time we did an event or open house or some of our other things, and we called them, they all came, every time. Upon my return to New York a few days later, a very special preview of Red Regatta was held in New York at Italy's permanent mission at the United Nations at the invitation of Ambasciatrice Zappia and with the Ministro dell'Ambiente Sergio Costa, co-organized with Magazzino Italian Art. I shared the video this video had been made just a few days before, and I shared it fresh at the UN. And we exhibited, thanks to Miguel Quismondo for helping with the installation, we exhibited Red Regatta works, and the Ambasciatrice and the Ministro enthusiastically praised the project and requested that these works continue to be on view during high-level climate change meetings, which was a huge honor. So some of these plans were there. These are my notations about each boat and their sails. We presented a preview in Venice the day before the first Red Regatta, and a series of programs during the process of the project with Ocean Space at San Lorenzo in Venice, in collaboration with members of the Associazione Vela Terzo, sempre, always, to bring the Venetian community together and spur conversations on project themes in relationship to the traditions that have shaped life in Venice for a millennium. They had the largest turnout of Venetians ever since they opened with Red Regatta. And so they asked us to come back and do other things because we brought all the people, the Venetian people. On May 11th, the first public day of the Biennale, a preview performance of Red Regatta included 52 traditional Venetian Vela Terzo sailboats sailed in Venice's northern lagoon between Fondamento Nove and Isola di San Michele, followed by an aperitivo, which is the tradition of the regattas, as they always have an aperitivo after. Everything has to be done with a spritz, right? Red Regatta shirts were given to all the sailors and crew members, so make them visible as well. And it had an overwhelming positive response. It was so enthusiastic. People were lined up to watch the regatta. This is May 11th, the first one. Oh, I'm sorry. Uh-oh. Start that again. Oh, you get to watch the beginning again. And say wow again. Thank you. The performative regattas of 52 vessels sailed in routes which we carefully mapped with choreography specific to the area of the lagoon. Nicola Zenaro, the sporting director of the Vela Terzo Association, who you also saw painting with us, was instrumental in this, as well as organizing a lot of permissions. It was very, very difficult, of course, to organize. The logistical was just over the top. So I just wanted to show you where I just made this quickly, just gesturally, to show you the 4 different locations. So the one that you just saw is here. Bacini, which is over here, is where the Vela Terzo headquarters are. The second one we sailed is this one, between San Servolo and Poveglia. I'll show you that one. And then the third one was down the Canal da Giudecca into Bacino San Marco, and the last in between Torcello and Burano. So, you know, everybody thinks about this part of Venice, but this is Venice. It's all the islands. So that was actually, that was not my original idea. My original idea was to sail them all in Bacino San Marco to get that visibility, but in the end, with some of the delays of getting some of the permissions and things, that was actually a gift in the end, because we did them in 4 different locations. That was the best thing, right, that came out of that. Giorgio's nodding. Is that it really became part of the city, and 2 of the regattas, the last two were in conjunction with community events in the city, which I will talk to you about too. So this is, Red Regatta is the first artwork to be registered as a Clean Regatta as part of the Sailors for the Sea program, which mobilizes sailors to protect the ocean through education and activism. So we registered the project to be as a Clean Regatta with Sailors for Sea, which this means is that we follow a list of best practices. For example, giving all of the sailors Red Regatta water bottles, I'm drinking out of one, avoiding plastic, using compostable and recyclable materials for all of our events, etc. And this beautiful Red Regatta water bottle was designed with all of our Red Regatta identity by Waterhouse Cifuentes Design. So navigating the waters between San Servolo and Poveglia along the coast of the Lido is where the second regatta happened. One of the photographers who did a lot of beautiful work for the project is Marco Gaggio, a wonderful Venetian photographer. He took this picture that day from a different angle because I was in a boat, and so the videos are by Giovanni Pellegrini, as I said, with Ginkgo Film, but some of the pictures that I took, I'm surrounded by other boats, so it's nice to see this point of view too in the drone. On August 31st, the Peggy Guggenheim Collection and director Carol Vale, Peggy Guggenheim's granddaughter and the director of the museum, hosted a group of Red Regatta collaborating boats with red sails hoisted, moored in front of the Peggy Guggenheim Collection, where their visitors were able to learn about the themes of the project. And on Sunday, they did a children's program, which invited the participants for an activity dedicated to nature and its conservation, inspired by Red Regatta. Each sail is really a painting here, so to have it in front of the Guggenheim and these sails as paintings and illuminated by the sun, where you can see the brushstrokes again, was a real thrill. And something happened this day, which I will try to say without crying, because it was so moving. Bucintoro, which is the oldest rowing club in Venice, it's ancient, it's been around forever, they rowed by. They're rowers, so they rowed by in a long wooden boat from the Canottiere Bucintoro, which dates back to 1882. And as so we were sitting I was sitting with Paula in her boat, Calypso, right there, and they went by, and they stopped, and they gave us the alzaremi, which is the salute where they all pick up their oars together in salute to Red Regatta. And that was the most incredible, moving experience, to have a Venetian organization of that history and of that importance to acknowledge the project in that way. I'm going to cry, so I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Okay, so this was the way they presented it is all together for the lagoon, and you can see us red shirts and getting ready for the program. Okay, so the next day is when we sailed down the Canal of the Giudecca. Now, I have this, before you watch this video, I have to point something out. So finally, the Comune, after they saw 2 very successful regattas and heard great things about it and believed that this was actually happening, they got really excited about it. So they said, okay, you can, not only will we let you sail where you want to, all together there with the Associazione Vela Terzo, but we will invite you to be the opening event for the Regatta Storica, which I was falling off my chair at that moment. And so we were the opening event for the Regatta Storica on September 1st, and they cleared the Canal of the Giudecca and Bacino San Marco for us to give us space. Now, I have to explain what that means, because that means no cruise ships. That they're stopped. That means Vaporetto, yes, because people have to get around. That means no other like tourist boats, shuffling people back and forth. That means no taxis. That means the space was ours to sail down the Canal of the Giudecca, where normally the sailors are prohibited from sailing. So for them to sail down the Canal of the Giudecca was a really big thing. And to finish in Bacino San Marco, of course, was an incredible thrill. And so this one that I'm about to show you, we really worked hard for. We had to let the ferry boat go. So here I want to show you a series of photos from Marco Gaggio, because he got some really wonderful moments captured as well. This one's mine. And these are mine, my smiling friends. Nobile volta fora. So they brought their kids, and I hope you can feel the energy of the people who are so incredible. This was in our boats. That's Sonia, Georgia's Giorgio's partner. And the smiles here. This is my family. So we are grateful to the Compagnia delle Vele, Bucintoro, Certosa for support for the aperitivi, because this was after Select sponsored our aperitivi. And Vento di Venezia and Classic Boats Venice, who donated the boat service they had beautiful classic boats that we were able to bring press in and donors in with wonderful silent electrical engines. And then we did a series of open houses. So this open house was titled Past and Present, Local to Global. It was inspired by the event at the United Nations because that's something that the ambasciatrice talked about, and also the Ministro Sergio Costa spoke about that, how local can impact global. So the subtitle was Vela al Terzo Sailing Tradition with the Associazione Vela al Terzo and Red Regatta. It was on September 14th, the day before our last regatta. And it marked our second collaboration because I told you they invited me back because they wanted more Venetians to come to Ocean Space. So they would, that's the project where Joan Jonas has a wonderful project there, and that has attracted a lot of attention. But that's been mostly Biennale and art audiences. So this was an opportunity to open that up. So Red Regatta and Ocean Space presented a free interactive public program addressing the local and global perspective of conservation in the Venice's lagoon, including panel discussions exploring the history of Venice and the city's current environmental state, and educational and hands-on workshops for audiences of all ages. So Ocean Space, I just want to say a little bit more about what they do. They are a transdisciplinary platform for oceanic research and innovation in the revitalized Chiesa di San Lorenzo, which was closed for many, many years. So it's wonderful use. So we, the Red Regatta team and Ocean Space leadership, participating sailors and project collaborators came together to create a whole day of programming. And this is Paolo Rusca. He's one of my collaborating sailors. He also built at least 5 of the boats that sailed in Red Regatta by hand. And he's showing his traditional tools here to onlookers. And then we had some scientists from ISMAR come and speak about the environment. I moderated a 2-part panel conversation in Italian, exploring the culture and history. That was difficult that day to keep up with all the scientific terms, which I didn't do very well on, but I tried. The history of the Vela al Terzo sailing tradition with the president of the Associazione Vela al Terzo, Giorgio Righetti, the author, Silvio Testa, of his book. He came to speak about current and future environmental threats in the Venetian lagoon, bodies of water around the world. And audiences were invited to join the sailors in the hands-on workshops, learn about knot tying, boat building techniques, and we actually painted a sail in the campo, and the students came back to help with that. So now we are coming to the last regatta, which was about a month ago, September 15th. The route was Burano-Torcello. And all of the regattas we gave viewing locations out on my website, social media. We tried to spread the word about people, where people could see them. But we really had a tremendous amount of amazing press, international press. Our PR team did an incredible job. And we had, just word of mouth, like incredible amount of word of mouth of people lining, the fondamente to see Red Regatta. And so really it's about 300 collaborators, because I thought it was about 250. But one of the sailors told me that he had all his friends fighting who gets to come in the next Red Regatta. So we had many more people, because the crews, which I thought would be the same for every regatta, were not the same. They switched every time. So the other thing I want to mention about this area of the lagoon that we're going to see the last regatta now is that it's a much more natural part, the Laguna Nord, so very shallow water, perfect for these boats. But you'll see the marshes, and it looks like Venice was. Concurrently with this regatta, this last one, we were invited to be the opening event of the Regatta di Burano, which features the century-old tradition of the voga, the rowing. And so that is the other invitation from the Comune di Venezia that we had, is to align with these 2 incredible days in Venice. And I'm very honored and grateful to them for doing that with us. And here are a few shots by Giorgio Schirato from Ginkgo Film, who got a perspective from the Tower of Torcello. And you can see Burano behind. Burano, and I think that's San Francesco del Deserto with all of the cypress. So I've received letters that I will treasure forever from the sailors, students, and collaborators, moved, excited, and inspired. And we are all very, very proud of this project. There has been more frequency since Red Regattas of sales in Bacino San Marco for the Associazione Vela Terzo, where they had to fight for it before. They've now, since Red Regatta, been invited to like sell 3 regattas in the, I don't even think you know that yet, in Bacino San Marco. So more visibility for the tradition, and the echoes of the project are continuing. There are things being scheduled at Ocean Space now by other groups in Venice that now know they can go to Ocean Space to schedule things, and the word is out about that space, which is excellent. And I want to read a quote from Giorgio Righetti, the president of the Vela Terzo Association, who said, "For me, Red Regatta is the first form of public artwork that values and extols Venetian tradition. These have been emotional days for me and all of the participants who felt that they were architects in a great team effort. We embraced Red Regatta with enthusiasm to share our passion and make the wider world aware of our existence." I want to now draw your attention to the reflections in the water. This is really how it was. And in the regattas, now we're moving into the third body of work. So it was the renderings and the color studies, and now the reflection work. So Giorgio maybe sometimes was like, "Come on, hoist that sail," and I'd be like taking pictures, you know. But now he understands why. So I have been working on a series of reflections that were taken during the regattas that I am now printing. Here you can see 2 different colors of two of the sails. And you can feel how I was talking about the light changing at different times of day in the regattas. And here's a little behind the scenes for the preparation for some of the works that I have been sent to Artissima in Torino for the solo exhibition that was mentioned with Mazzoleni that opens on October 31st. And I will be having an upcoming show of these works at my gallery in New York with David Tota, who's here, in January. And we are going to be doing a book project, so there's more to come. Thank you. So I don't know if anyone has questions, but I'm happy to answer them. So many? Okay. I'm going to let this run. This is a compilation of all 4 regattas. But yes, ask. What's your question?
Well, I'd like to ask about what are the sails made of? And, oh no. What are the Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
What are the sails made of, and how did you get the paint to adhere? In other words, how did you anticipate being able to see the strokes of paint as part of what you anticipated?
That's a great question. Okay, so the sails traditionally were cotton. No sailor wants cotton sails now. I looked to the Associazione Vela Terzo for all of the guidance about this part of the project. So they don't want them because they mildew. They have no space to dry them in. Venice is there's a space problem with, not being able to hang these, you saw how big they are. So they wanted sails that are made of dacron and materials like that, because they can then survive the conditions and weather and sun and salt water and all of that. So you have to give the sailors what they want. So we went with finding a material that the sailmaker researched. We are always looking for the most environmentally friendly materials possible. Then I asked, well, okay, so originally the sails were rubbed with earth and earthy pigments, but obviously that was not going to be vibrant enough for this project. So I said to them, how do you paint the sails? That's where Alessandro Pagnacco, who gave me the profile drawings, came in, because he taught me to paint sails. He said, devi fare la barba, which means like soaping up the beard, like in a circle like this. So I don't know if you could see when the students were painting, but you have to scrub it in, and you have to have the right amount of water. So it was a lot of trial and error. In a talk like this, it looks pretty smooth and fast, like it just goes, but I did tons of experiments. And the illumination happened where I was figuring out that you could see the brushstrokes because I was experimenting with the sailcloth and the first sail that you saw, and I was so afraid to paint that sail. I waited so long. I waited till the last minute. I was terrified that I kept painting swatches like this big and hanging them in my windows. And finally, I was like, okay, I have to know how long this is going to take, and et cetera. So I finally threw myself into it because they're expensive. So, and finally figured out, through that experimentation what that would be like. And it's always a bit of a surprise, when you can plan as much as you want. But then when you are doing that, there's can we just celebrate the weather on these 4, please? It rained, poured 2 hours after the first regatta. It didn't rain for us, but 2 hours later, torrential. So we were very, lucky with the weather. But there's a lot of things you just have to, throw your heart out in front of you and run ahead to catch it. Someone else?
Hi, you've mentioned, thank you very much, first of all. It's
Thank you.
a pleasure to see. You keep on mentioning this Associazione Vela della Terzo. Could you explain what it is, please?
Yeah, the Associazione Vela Terzo is the boat club, the boat association for this kind of boat. So it's a club of members that have these kind of wooden boats that fall into a certain classification, and they are maintaining the tradition, and they sail their own regattas, and they try to, celebrate the traditions, but also keep the traditions alive. I brought more quotes by Giorgio, but I'm going to refer to them by Giorgio Righetti, because he said, the mission of the Vela Terzo Association is to promote the tradition of our boats that we sail in the lagoon as a way to resist the overwhelming wakes and the impact of motorboats. So the Venetians really see themselves as resistors. I've had many people say that to me. In the past 30 years of our activity, we have grown from a dozen boats to 350. In our current count, I am convinced that the future of Venice cannot be broken from this tradition. So.
And are they new boats that they also are making in the way of the
They are also making new ones. A lot of times they'll take a boat that has been abused or left to rot or whatever and try to rebuild it as much as possible. Paolo Rusca, the man with the tools from Ocean Space, he is building them, but they are all building them in the tradition of what they were. There's different kinds. There's Batteo a Piso, San Pierotta. There's like a whole, there are different shapes and different kinds of them. You can probably note that some of them have a longer, thinner form and some of them are wider. So it's this certain type of the Vela al Terzo, which is Vela is sail, al Terzo is of the third. And it has to do with the dimensions, and they have two antennae that are holding the sails they're rigged to, and one or two masts usually. Most of them have two masts. Some of them I think have one. Hi.
Question, as a work of art, we saw the origins and the beginning of this. As a work of art, we saw the origins, the beginning of this, and you've talked about some future regattas. Where, do you have parameters? Could a sailor sail with one of these reds by themselves? Do you like to see it collectively? And I guess what's the future of this?
So the future is that, there's the bodies of work that I've shown you that I've done throughout the project. It's funny that you ask about whether they can sail without them. So we gave them the sails. They ask me every time, Melissa, they write to me, posso usare la vela rossa? Can I use the red sails? Because some of them, maybe had one sail and needed a second sail sometimes. So actually, they sailed a regatta last weekend, and you could see a few red sails within them, which I approved and said was fine. But we signed a contract for a certain amount of time that they would not be sailing in a group of red sails altogether. They would not be amassing in any form during the life of the project. And they all want to do more of them. So now I have to figure out what's going to happen next. There's been a lot of ideas about that, but we'll see. It only ended a month ago, so I have to recover for a moment. But because it was 2 years of a tremendous amount of work. But some people want to bring it to New York, and some people want to do it here and there. We've got a lot of ideas floating around, but it's really about the vibrancy and the aliveness of the project. So I think there's different parts of it. As I said, we're going to do a book. The project can grow and continue in different ways, but I think that one of the key things about doing a public art project like this is this project was for uniting Venetians and visitors, but what it did for this Venetian community was beyond my dreams, and the pride that they feel for participating in it, and the fact that they want to do more, and they're like, what else are we doing? Where are we going now? And it's all incredible, and I think that spirit of it is the artwork, really. So.
Melissa, I have more a comment than a question. First of all, congratulations, because you demonstrated not only a great artistic eye, but endurance and patience and stubbornness needed, as we all know, having to deal with Venice.
Specifically there, yeah.
Exactly. And what impressed me is the way in which you really were able to bring in your own impulse of an artist, of a visionary, ambitious artist, to do something like that, and the local energies.
Yeah.
And we have had plenty of roundtables and discussions here at Casa Italiana about Venice, the decline of Venice. Venice is dying. We presented a book of Professor Setti's, If Venice Dies.
Yeah.
And I think
I have that book on my desk.
I walk out of an event about Venice with my heart a little lighter, because you showed actually concretely what can be done to breathe in new life into Venice, respecting its natural and artistic heritage, and at the same time revitalizing, bringing new stuff, and they embraced it and welcomed it. It was not closed. So I think you did an incredible work.
Thank
and
you.
Also what was impressive from a gender point of view is that I saw you and other two young women addressing a crowd basically of only men.
Yeah.
And you were able to convince all of them of the dignity and worth of your project. And that is another miracle in and of itself.
Yes.
So congratulations for that.
Thank you. Thank you. We had 4 women. in the regatta. For when I refer to the sailors, it's the boat owners, the armatori. So we had 4 female armatori. There are not a lot of them, but maybe there'll be more now because all the students, there were a lot of female students that like sailing now, so I'm listening. Yes?
I understand that the Biennale at the beginning turned you down, the stupid idiots. How did you, what happened then? Did you convince them to change their mind?
No. Actually, I think that was fine because this project should have been an independent project. If I was going to do it again, I wouldn't apply. Really. I think it was an independent project and the subject matter and everything, the relationship to the city, it was great that it stood on its own. So it's okay. We made lemonade. And I don't know why, actually, because I don't know why. I could never guess, but I think that was a hard point to keep going. That rejection came in January. The sail painting workshop was in March. So, tutto lì. Anyone else? Okay, thank you so much for coming this evening.